Right before the holidays, Nichi Bei News writer Tomo Hirai and I sat down with Lindsay Nakano, 5 p.m. news producer at KGO7 TV in San Francisco. Lindsay shares how her mom helped catalyze her career direction.
My mom was a news producer at Channel 5 back in the day, and that I think is a little bit of what sparked my interest in local news. I was in the newsroom, when I was really little, during a mass breaking news story in the Channel 5 newsroom, and to see that adrenaline and, everybody kick into gear. It was the 101 California shooting. And then going to college and trying to figure out a career path, communications and journalism, local media was interesting to me. And so I sort of just casually started pursuing that. Out of college, I interned in Sacramento at KOVR and KMAX. And so I learned how to work in a newsroom. I was an intern, I was a PA. From there, my first job out of Davis was in Salinas, which was very, very interesting. It's market like 113, 120. It's a little market where basically the staff and resources are so limited that you learn to do everything. From Salinas, I got my break to come back home. There was a financial show at Channel 4 at Kron, and they were doing news cut-ins. So my job when I started at Kron was to produce 2-minute news cut-ins during this financial newscast. About 5 years, I felt like I was ready to grow some more. And some of the limitations of Kron is that they weren't affiliated with one of the big networks, and as an independent station, so the resources were a lot more limited. So I went across the street to Channel 2 at KTVU, which is just sort of a local Bay Area institution. And there were people there that had been at KTVU for years and years and years, and it was a huge growing opportunity for me to, have feedback and critiques and, I went from feeling like the big fish in the little pond to the little fish in the big pond. And then about a year ago, I left KTVU and I joined KGO. And a lot of that was a management decision. I started at KTVU when they were owned by Cox Media Group, and within 5 years of me being there, they were sold to Fox. They had always been a Fox affiliate, but they were sold so that they were owned and operated by Fox. And I worked there during the time of the Trump administration, which is a very interesting time to work for a Fox-owned station. So especially during a lot of the pandemic and the Asian hate crime stuff, I felt like the company's response was not where I wanted it to be. And that was sort of a launching point for me overall in terms of the company's response in many other areas, George Floyd, etc. And so my frustration with the company launched me to look for other job opportunities, which was what ultimately landed me at Channel 7.
We asked Lindsay who were her heroes and mentors that she looked up to in her area of work.
I think in a lot of ways, probably my mom. But I don't think I would ever tell her that to her face. To recognize where we are in this place and time where there is space for journalists of all backgrounds and races and ethnicities. It's crazy to think that that was not that way, even a few decades ago. And so to understand what the previous generation accomplished in terms of being main anchors and producers and news directors of stations in a market like San Francisco is pretty incredible task. And then, it's sort of because it's something that I grew up with, you sort of think it's not a big deal. And then you realize that the rest of the country wasn't like that. It's been an honor to be exposed to people in my fields that have really, broken the glass ceiling.
Lindsay talks about how it is important to advocate news of interest in ethnic communities like San Francisco Japantown.
Ethnic communities are really important. I think it's what makes the Bay Area so unique, right? And I think that it's not, obviously me being Yonsei has a lot to do with it. That would be ridiculous to not factor that in. But I also think, J-Town warrants it. It's that special. It's one of 3, one of 4 in the entire country. It is a unique community that we have here. I think that, our San Francisco Chinatown and Oakland Chinatown are important as well. But I think that they have ambassadors in, the media industry that are able to advocate for stories in that sector. And I just, want to do my part in making sure that J-Town and JA community, stories of importance also are in mainstream media.
Lindsay talks about reconnecting with the Japanese American community and her roots, and the importance of future generations in helping sustain communities like San Francisco Japantown.
I think it's really evolved. In the beginning, it was sort of this, just, I'm here, I'm raised, around it. I grew up in J Basketball League. I had to go to church twice a month because that was the requirement. And I think it was sort of something that was taken for granted. Well, especially because I grew up in the East Bay, right? So you came to J-Town and I had to wait for my mom to do JCC meetings at the center. So we just hung out in the gym. We had to come to J-Town for, go to the Sanrio store and buy gum. And I think that evolved into middle school and becoming more involved in the center and some of the programs that they have. So I did Shinzen, which was incredible experience. I went to Japan for the very first time. Then coming back and doing Cherry Blossom. I was in the Cherry Blossom court in 2006, maybe, I think. And so that sort of reintroduced me to the JA community in a different aspect, and being able to be an ambassador of the community in that way. And that was sort of a responsibility that I hadn't really had before, being on the court and meeting girls, in Seattle and Hawaii and LA, and trying to figure out your JA-ness from the Bay Area and how that set you apart from other ladies in other parts of the country was interesting. And then more recently, I've been involved. I'm on the Japantown Foundation, and so re-engaging in Japantown and being able to give back and make sure that it's sustainable for the future, and that's sort of something that I've just begun doing in sort of my new chapter and relationship with Japantown. Japanese Americans now and in the future and future generations definitely have an important role to play. There's huge responsibility. It's not only passing down, all of the lessons of our history and culture. It is also maintaining our community heartbeats like Japantown, supporting our local businesses, and then also evolving them so that they don't fall behind on the times and sort of we have to reinvent them or it's helping some of those mom and pops along so that they don't go extinct, I think. And then, there's a social responsibility in terms of making sure that the lessons learned from internment stay alive, and that the stories of internment stay alive, and making sure that there is more support for that to be more widespread knowledge. I think we do a good job of making sure that people in our community are aware of the past transgressions of the U.S. government. But I think that there are a lot of people, and I think it's one of those things that I forget because we're Bay Area, we're West Coast, we all take for granted that we know. And when you take a step back and you realize that the people in the middle of the country, like East Coast, South, have absolutely no idea that this happened to us and to our relatives. So it is making sure that those lessons are alive and passed down, and that there's that awareness.
Literally, a Yonsei newsmaker. This is Greg Gloria for Tomohiro Ai for the Nichi Bei Cafe.